Our next speaker is going to tell us about another project, one of the world's leading Free Cities Aligned projects in the country of Honduras. So I would like you to join me in welcoming to the stage the Chief of Staff of Próspera, Trey Goff.
Thank you, Peter.
That's your clicker.
Thank you. Hello. I am Trey Goff, Chief of Staff and Chief Marketing Officer for Próspera, Honduras Próspera, Inc. And we are the most advanced free private city project in the world that I am aware of. Apologies for being on crutches here. I tried to time my knee surgery such that I'd be walking by the time I got here. I did not do the math right, so I'm on crutches here, unfortunately. But please bear with me. So what we do at Próspera is we are a platform for radically human-centered governance. Let me give you a quick overview of why we exist, what it is that Próspera is here to do. I've got a lot of slides. I'm going to try to flip through them fairly quickly. Apologies if I speak a little fast. I'm trying to leave room at the end for a bit of Q&A, so you guys can ask me some questions of whatever is not clear from the presentation. First, I want to talk a little bit about our vision. Our vision for Próspera is to elevate human potential through radically human-centered governance. We believe that when individuals have the freedom to build a business and the government is a stable partner in prosperity, wages will rise, economic opportunities will multiply, and our communities will be safer, with a new paradigm of human flourishing will be born. The way we do this is we partner to create prosperity with existing governments. Legacy systems of governance prevent developing countries from participating in global prosperity because of a number of kind of inbuilt obstacles to developing and adopting the policies that we know catalyze human prosperity. Próspera provides the framework and stability to attract international investment and create sustainable economic development faster and safer than the existing alternatives. We are, in a word, governance for innovation. Próspera provides the most transparent and efficient business environment in the world. Our system of legal, regulatory, and tax frameworks are designed to be an economic supercharger, massively easing business conditions and unlocking new opportunities for innovation, such as fintech, DeFi, and biotech, real-world examples of which are operating in Próspera today, which I will go into more detail on here in a little bit. First, to describe kind of why we're going about it the way we are. The punchline here is that over $100 trillion of wealth goes uncreated every year due to poor governance. As you can see in the charts here, there's a very strong correlation between GDP per capita and the World Bank's Doing Business Index. This index effectively measures, in a word, economic freedom, how easy it is to do business, to innovate, and to create new things, to create new value for others in the world. In the chart there on the right, you can see a little kind of back of the envelope math. If we were to simply take the average Doing Business Index score of any country of all the countries in the world and make every country in the world just at that average level, not even exceptional, just average, then we would unleash hundreds of trillions of dollars in potential wealth. That, in a word, is what Próspera aims to do over the long run, create and unleash those hundreds of trillions of dollars of potential value that humans can create for others if only they were given the circumstances to do so. Effectively, we want to go from the images on the left to the images on the right, a struggling society to a prosperous society. Note we're not building the stuff on the right, although I wish we were. That'd be super cool. So the way Próspera works is effectively we are a platform. The first country in which we are operating is Honduras. The model is very straightforward. We have spent years working with scholars like Titus and many others to develop a governance platform. We call it the Próspera Governance Platform. It is a bundle of laws, rules, regulations, and the administration thereof that can be applied kind of in a copy-paste model to any jurisdiction in the world where the host government, the host nation, passes the enabling legislation to allow us to implement the Próspera Governance Platform in their jurisdiction. Right now, we are focused in Honduras, but we have plans to create more of these hubs around the world as time goes on. So first, how do we get there? How do we get to this much more prosperous and innovative world that I have described thus far? Well, the cool thing is we already know how to do it because there are places around the world that have already done a version of what we're talking about. Places like Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Dubai, and Singapore. These places went from terrible poverty. My favorite example of this is Shenzhen, China. In 1989, before Shenzhen was declared the first special economic zone in communist China, it had a population of around 300,000 people and a GDP per capita of around $500 a year. Today, Shenzhen is the Silicon Valley of the East. Shenzhen's population is over 12 million people, And the GDP per capita has risen to over 40,000 US dollars per person. So at the same time, the population increased by a factor of 1,000x. The GDP per capita also increased concomitantly. And what did they do in Shenzhen? In 1989, it was declared the first special economic zone in China. They allowed the formation of private businesses, foreign and private ownership of capital, relaxed labor regulations. They, in a word, massively improved economic freedom. And the outcome is one of the fastest growing places in the world. Hong Kong, Dubai, and Singapore and others have done the same thing, and we are working to do that in Honduras today. The way we do this is through, again, the Próspera governance platform, which I'll describe in just a little bit more detail here. And you can learn a lot more about this if you go to prospera.hn or follow us on social media. We're talking about this all the time. But effectively in Próspera, we have 4 key elements of the governance platform that really unleash human potential. First is a reciprocal regulatory environment. In Próspera, if you want to operate under the regulatory environment of any OECD country, any high-income country, you can automatically do so within the jurisdiction. Próspera also has a legal right for any individual or business operating in the jurisdiction to do what's called an optimal regulatory proposal, which effectively means you can propose your own regulatory environment based on best practices from around the world. The Próspera Council, which is the governing body of the jurisdiction, will consider your proposal, consult subject matter experts, and if it is passed, that now becomes a regulatory option for anyone else operating in your industry within the jurisdiction. And this has already happened, actually. The founder of a startup bank, Seshat Bank, Sean Pauly, who will be speaking to you guys tomorrow, was the first person to go through this process, actually, and have a regulatory environment created for him, effectively. Normally, to do that in any other democratic society, like, say, the United States, it requires hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to spend on lobbyists to hope that maybe you can influence the regulators. In Próspera, you have the right to do this as an individual or business with $0, without spending anything on lobbying or anything like that. And then we also have private dispute resolution with the Próspera Arbitration Center, where we have a separate private dispute resolution center with jurists from around the world, some former state-level Supreme Court justices from the United States, people from Australia, Germany, and many other places. We have a very low competitive tax environment, as well as private provision of public services that are competitively bid out to the most effective firms. And what this results in, according to a pro forma analysis by Ernst & Young, is that Honduras Próspera would be in the top 10 in the world on the Doing Business Index rank if it were evaluated separately from Honduras. A key note here, the only reason it's not number 1 was because we got dinged really hard for the cost of electricity on the island. As you might imagine, electricity is expensive on an island. I can't speak publicly about exactly what we're doing there, but we have some really cool solutions for that in the pipeline too. So we will be the equivalent of number 1 very soon. Now, our business model as a company is very much similar to the way Titus described the Free Private Cities model. And Titus was intimately involved in the formation of Próspera. Actually, you'll see some historical pictures of Titus here in a minute. But it's really 3 pillars. One is real estate development. As you might imagine, when you start from a greenfield site, nothing but a jungle, and you develop an economic activity there, allow businesses to form and thrive there, then the value of the land rises concomitantly. Number 2, we get a percentage of the tax revenue through what we call our governance as a service model, GaaS model, if you will, kind of copying the SaaS model, right? Software as a service. And then 3 is equity portfolio in strategic tenants. So early tenants that want to set up in the jurisdiction and are doing something really cool, we will often help provide either startup capital or startup help for them in a number of ways, so that we get equity in those growing companies as well. So that's the kind of the business model for Próspera. Now, how did we get here? This will be a little more fun than just the boring governance stuff. This is where we started, with a plot of land that effectively looked like a jungle, basically, back in 2016. This is photos of some of our kind of early crew there, a meeting with our founder and CEO and the former Eric Bremen and the former mayor of Roatan there on the right, and my very first trip to Roatan there on the left. Of course, I had to take the inaugural drink on the island as well. So we've been at this for quite a long time. You'll see here the very first public postings of the property we were incorporating into the special jurisdiction. The process requires you to do public postings and radio announcements, kind of a 30-day public notice period. These are photos of the very first times that we did that for the first property incorporated into the jurisdiction. And here you can see, with Titus as well, the presentation of and signing of Próspera's charter, which you can think of as almost like Próspera's constitution, right? It's the charter that lays out the legal framework and the regulatory structures and the governance structures of the jurisdiction. with the former technical secretary, which is like the mayor of the jurisdiction, if you will, as well as there on the right, Carlos Pineda, who was one of the principal authors of the enabling legislation, the ZEDE law, and was a member of CAMP, which is the oversight body that oversees the creation of ZEDEs. Here you can see our co-founders working very hard at breaking ground on the very first structure that we were building there. There on the left is Gabe, our co-founder, attacking our other founder, Eric, on the right there. And this is what that resulted in, a building that we call the Beta Building. Here you'll see some photos of the first construction of that. Now, the building is called the Beta Building, not on purpose. We internally called it the Beta Building because it was a beta test of our governance software, right? When I refer to software for Próspera, it's not just computer code, although there is that. We have the ePróspera governance platform being built by the same team that built the Estonian e-governance platform. But I also refer to the legal and regulatory environment. We had to really test to make sure everything worked as we intended it to by building something there ourselves first. So the name Beta Building just kind of accidentally stuck, unfortunately. So this is what the construction of that looked like. We used entirely local timber. As you can see here, we built around the local ecology. For every tree we removed, we planted 5 more across the island. And the completed building is a gorgeous structure that actually won some architectural awards in Latin America. We'll flip through some photos of this briefly. We had initially intended this to be a kind of co-working and co-living space, with the space upstairs here being kind of like little apartments and the bottom floor being working space. There was such demand for commercial space, however, for people to work, that we ended up converting all of the co-living space into office space effectively. And now the building is completely full, and we are building as fast as we can to satiate the commercial demand for space in the jurisdiction. To do so, next up, we are building something we call the Duna Towers. These are mixed-use, kind of young professional apartments. Importantly, these are being built by a third-party real estate developer, which is a core part of our model. It's a group called the Apollo Group. This is a real estate developer group who saw the potential of the Próspera jurisdiction, who saw how much easier it would be to build in Próspera, and decided to build a group of towers in the jurisdiction. Construction begun a few months ago. You can actually see these pictures were from last week, I believe. I tried to get the most recent pictures. They're adding a floor a week, so it's hard to make sure I'm most up to date. It's already the tallest structure on the island, and when it's completed, it will be 14 stories tall and will be by far the largest structure on the island. There will be 4 of these towers, and we're selling these right now. You can visit dunaresidences.com to look at purchasing an apartment. I think they start around like $55,000 or $60,000 for the studio. And this is what these will look like once completed. Importantly, and we didn't actually realize this until we went to the site, I don't know, about a month ago when construction started, and I was touring the construction. You actually have ocean views from the 2nd floor up. We had initially only planned that from the 5th floor up, but the way it worked out, you have ocean views on effectively almost every floor where there will be apartments, which is going to be awesome. We also have under construction, or under development right now, a awesome project with Zaha Hadid. I'm sure if you've heard about Próspera before, you've seen these renders. They've been all over the internet for quite a while. We're finally actually building these. It took a while for a number of reasons, but we're very excited about these. So these units are being designed and built in a modular fashion in a way that construction is one of those few industries that has not really been disrupted by technology yet, and we are trying to fix that in Próspera. The problem with it, of course, is that building codes and zoning regulations keep innovators from being able to innovate in this physical space, but they can do so in Próspera. So here we have Circular Factory, which is a startup in the jurisdiction founded by a woman named Alicia Namad. She has a PhD in human robotics interaction. And these are micro factories, effectively, that utilize human robotic workflows to create a kit of parts that can, I'm oversimplifying a bit, but they effectively snap together like Legos. This enables rapid construction and iteration and can be expanded, the factory size can be expanded from a small building we have right now, which will just be a few robots, up to as big as you need to scale as quickly as possible. And that circular factory building is under construction right now. You can see the robots there. We got those delivered a few weeks ago. They're being set up and tested as we speak. But perhaps even more importantly, we've also expanded the footprint of the Próspera ZA jurisdiction significantly with a resort called Pristine Bay. This brings the total footprint of the developing St. John's Bay city, which is the name of the city development, which I'll go into more detail in a minute, to over 700 acres. It includes a clubhouse, villas, a hotel, a golf course designed by Pete Dye, restaurants, bars, a private beach. It's really gorgeous. And you can go there right now and visit the Próspera ZA. Go stay at the hotel, Las Verandas, or at the resort, Pristine Bay. I highly encourage you to do so. The Mesoamerican Barrier Reef is a mere 50 yards or about 50 meters or so, let's say, 30 meters off of the shore of the development. So it's absolutely gorgeous. One of the best scuba diving and snorkeling locations on Earth. We have also built Próspera, a world-class digital governance system. As I mentioned earlier, this is being built by the same team that built the Estonian e-governance system. And this is effectively a 21st century portal to governance. Anything and everything you need to do that involves the government in Próspera can be done through ePróspera. If you're not an e-resident, I encourage you to go join and sign up now at eprospera.hn. And we've been working on this for quite a while. And the vision is eventually for a fully integrated e-governance platform that both allows for data portability and doing anything and everything governance related in a modern fashion through a software platform. No more sitting at the DMV, waiting in lines, talking to people. You can do it all through the internet as a modern governance and a modern governance provider should. We also launched something called Próspera Employment Solutions. What this is we effectively connect young Honduran talent to international firms, American especially, in a way that benefits both parties. The Americans get high quality but lower cost labor through the Hondurans, and the Hondurans are making on average over 5x what the national average wage is right now. GDP per capita is about $3,000 a year in Honduras, and the average Próspera Employment Solutions employee is making right around $20,000 a year, which is already a massive leapfrog compared to what they'd be making otherwise. We've got a number of firms who have started using this service, and it has been growing quite rapidly. And we have more positions open right now than we can even fill just with the demand for this service. Now, I wanted to focus for a minute as well on co-creators, because this is a kind of term of art we use in Próspera. But we recognize that building a city is not going to happen with just us. Building a bastion of freedom and a bastion of innovation is not going to just happen with our core kind of company working on it. So what we're looking for, and I want to invite each and every one of you to consider, is becoming a co-creator with us. What I mean by this is setting up your business or starting the business that you've always wanted to start in the Próspera jurisdiction in such a way that benefits both the jurisdiction and yourself. And I'll give you some examples of this. So first, we're already starting the integration of Bitcoin and Web3 into everyday life. You can see that big Bitcoin sign down there on the bottom. That is literally one of the first things you see pulling into the jurisdiction right now, which I quite love. It sets the tone. The creator of this, Dusan, is actually sitting here in the audience. We're very excited. I think he'll be speaking later as well. This is one of the first co-creators that we had. So you can see here, we helped Dusan set up. He's attracting people into the jurisdiction, helping set up these Web3 solutions that I'm super passionate about but don't have time to work on. Dusan's working on them instead. These are the types of examples of co-creators and what I mean by co-creator. Next up, we have, although I don't know how to play it on this. That's all right. We have Alicia Namad, the founder of Circular Factory here. I was going to show you guys some videos of these, but apparently I don't have the technological setup here today.
Mi nombre es Alicia Namad, soy arquitecta, he trabajado desde hace más de 12 años en el área de robótica y fabricación digital. La idea de Circular Factory salió hace 2 años cuando empezamos a platicar con Eric Bremen sobre Próspera, sobre esta gran oportunidad de traer tecnologías avanzadas de fabricación y crear carpintería, 3D printing, hacer todos esos procesos no en sitio, pero muy cerca de los sitios que se van a construir dentro de Próspera, que van a necesitar. Entonces realmente la idea detrás de Circular Factory es poder, en lugar de importar piezas terminadas y importar estas piezas de madera o piezas de 3D printing, de concreto, ya hechas de Europa o de Estados Unidos, la idea es agarrar y traer los robots, tener una fábrica o un taller básicamente de carpintería. A mí me gusta llamarlo un taller de carpintería avanzada dentro de Próspera, donde que nos permita utilizar la mano de obra local y materiales locales, pero al mismo tiempo producir estas geometrías complejas, estas formas curvas, todas estas topologías que sabemos que funcionan mejor, que son más sustentables, que son más ecológicas porque usan menos material, también son más bellas porque son estas curvaturas, y proyectos de alta complejidad, tal como el de Zaha Hadid, por ejemplo, que está desarrollando en Próspera, pero también otros que pueden demostrar el desarrollo de los materiales, hacer todo eso dentro de Próspera y al mismo tiempo entrenar o upskill a la gente, ¿no? Que puedan aprender cómo se usan estas máquinas y cómo pueden hacer no solo carpintería tradicional, pero carpintería digital avanzada.
So part of what Alicia is saying there is that we will upskill local Honduran engineers to work with these robots to be able to produce these components. And that the renders they showed very briefly there of the completed circular factory, we actually are building a beer garden on the front of the building with a plexiglass wall so that you can watch the robots build your home while you kind of hang out and drink there in front of it. It's going to be super cool. I'm very excited about that. That's where you'll probably find me hanging out most of the time in the jurisdiction. Next up, we have another company operating in the jurisdiction called Aerial Loop. They do a commercial drone delivery service to rapidly reduce the time to deliver or move goods across the island. They, too, are already set up and operating. I'll show you here a bit of a teaser of a way it could work. Although there's a beer in this thing, and I am told that they stuck that in there after the fact. I was really excited that it could carry a cup and not spill it, but apparently that's not right. I was really excited when I saw that. Apparently they're not that stable. And then to give you another example of a co-creator that I mentioned earlier, Sean Pauly, the founder of Seshat Bank, we'll share a few words from him, and of course he'll be speaking tomorrow as well, about why he chose to set up in Próspera, what the advantage was, and why he's there.
Hi, my name is Sean Pauly. I'm the founder of Seshat Bank. We are an API-first full-service commercial bank based here in Próspera, ZA. So Próspera itself has just been a very friendly legal and regulatory environment for us. We've been able to set up shop here. We've been able to work with the government of Próspera to implement one of the most forward-looking regulatory regimes on the planet for banking and financial services companies. And as a result, we've been able to move a lot faster than we would in other jurisdictions. In general, you're looking at probably a 2 to 3 year process in a lot of jurisdictions to get a bank going from 0 to live. Here, we were able to get it going in less than a year.
So that's what I mean by co-creators. And again, I invite you all to come find me throughout the rest of this conference to discuss any ideas you may have for co-creation within the jurisdiction as well. So now I'll tell you a little bit about where we're headed. First is the Próspera Hub 1, St. John's Bay, the city that we're constructing there on the island, as I mentioned earlier. It has direct daily flights to major airports in the U.S., Houston, Miami, and several others. And it's a beautiful location. Everything you can see in the orange outline there will be the eventual footprint of that jurisdiction. Here you can see the conceptual master plan. This is what's called a massing study. Don't pay close attention to the shape of the buildings. We were exploring some population densities here. But it gives you an idea of the scale and scope of what it is that we're working on right now. With the districts that we're setting up here, focused on finance. We've created the Roatan International Financial Center, and a number of other key innovation areas like biotech and others that are located in the jurisdiction and are being developed as we speak. I'm going to flip through these really quickly because I'm close to running out of time and I really want to leave you guys some questions, but you can see the kind of physical development here, where things are going. These are some affordable residencies that are also under development right now. We're at the engineering stage of these. These are targeting actually the employees themselves, the Hondurans that live and work in the jurisdiction. We wanted to make sure we had housing for them that is first world quality, but at a price point that is affordable for them. So that's what this structure, Leaf, will do. We've got some other really cool stuff in the pipeline as well. Again, the Beabu Zaha Hadid project that we're working on. But it's underway. And then we also have a adjacent mainland hub, kind of the Shenzhen to Roatan's Hong Kong. So a brief history lesson. Hong Kong and Shenzhen have always had a very symbiotic relationship. Oftentimes the financiers, the managers, the kind of corporate headquarters will be located in Hong Kong, while the light manufacturing, the actual production facilities take place in Shenzhen because land is much cheaper there. Obviously Hong Kong's an island, Shenzhen is not, it's on the mainland. We're duplicating that kind of dynamic between Shenzhen and Hong Kong here in Honduras. As a destination for nearshoring, effectively. Nearshoring is kind of a buzzword right now in the United States and many other places, trying to move manufacturing facilities out of China and out of East Asia and closer to the United States. And this mainland development in Setúye is going to be effectively a destination for that nearshoring. So this is the master plan for that development. It will include a deep water port and many other things. This one's at an earlier stage of development. We are currently in the process of doing some infrastructure master planning with Jacobs Engineering and a few other firms to get things underway there. But we're very excited about the potential of this as well to allow for other industries besides just the kind of more innovative industries like biotech and fintech, but also in physical industries like light manufacturing through our jurisdiction as well. So I'll flip through these very briefly, but we've got a lot of plans for both hubs, for both sites, as you can see here. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. Effectively, all I'll note here on this slide is that Our process and our kind of long-term vision and goal is really straightforward. We'll launch in Roatan, launch in Honduras, prove that the model is successful, and then export that Próspera governance platform to other places around the world to catalyze prosperity rapidly and profitably in as many places around the world as we can using this model. So with that, I'll pause and take any questions you guys might have. Awesome. See a question over here?
All right. Yes, hello. Amazing presentation. Do you see any future threats on the horizon for the prosperity of Próspera and other places that you export your ideas to?
Yes, thank you for the softball version of that question. The elephant in the room for this, effectively, is that the current Honduran presidential administration is very hostile to the ZA regime generally. They, unfortunately, are fairly left-leaning and progressive, as Titus mentioned earlier. However, we're very optimistic that a solution will be found to work with them very shortly. The first point I want to make is that the Honduran government, as a whole, much like every other government in the world, is not a monolithic institution. There are politicians, stakeholders, and Honduran elites within the country who are supportive of what we're doing, including in the government itself. And the problem right now is that the Honduran administration, their understanding of what it is we're doing is what they're not happy with, but they're not fully understanding what it is we're doing. And so we're working on an educational campaign with them to bring them up to speed on the fact that we share the same goals, which are prosperity for Honduras, job creation, and foreign direct investment. I can't share details exactly as to precisely what's going on there, but suffice to say we are extremely optimistic about how those things are going. And yeah, while that's a short-term threat, we are confident over the next 6 months it will be resolved in one way or the other, and we are going to continue building and advancing this project around the world and in Honduras regardless. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for the excellent presentation. My question regards why do you have legal tender laws and why not have competition between different monies?
So we do, actually. We don't have a legal tender law. This is a common misunderstanding that happened in the news. So we were the very first jurisdiction, and sorry, I'm trying to lean forward a little bit, take some weight off my leg. We were the very first jurisdiction in the world to allow Bitcoin to operate as legal tender. The key word there is operate. We did not pass a legal tender law precisely because it would force every merchant, every business in the jurisdiction to have to accept Bitcoin. As Titus mentioned earlier, it's important that everything in a project like this be voluntary. So we wanted to make sure that adoption of new currencies like Bitcoin and like many others is voluntary. So the Próspera Council passed a legal tender law back in May of 2021, I think. Quite a while ago. We beat El Salvador by like 9 months. And you can use not just Bitcoin, but many other cryptocurrencies as legal tender, which means you can also pay your taxes in them. You can pay your government fees in them. But again, we did not want to make it legal tender for the reason you just laid out, that we did not want to force businesses to have to take Bitcoin and other things. This is actually a huge problem in El Salvador right now, a lot of people aren't aware of, because the government specified one particular wallet and service provider to be the service provider for accepting Bitcoin in the country. And that's a cost imposed on businesses there. So we wanted to avoid that mistake that El Salvador made. So we made it to operate effectively as legal tender, but again, operate is the key word there. Absolutely. Here. One more? That's it? Oh, yeah.
We're spending certain time last year.
Oh, here you go.
Yeah. Oh, I think I'm loud enough like this. Okay. I've been spending a certain time on Roatan last year, not only to visit Próspera, but also to investigate on the opinions of the local people. And actually, it was before I visited Roatan, I investigated the local people. And I found a lot of tensions. So I'm not talking about the government or something like that. I'm talking about the local people. You have neighbors, you know. You're not alone on this planet or not alone on this island. And I found that last year, it was in May last year, to be fair, their tensions were really high. So I found a lot of people with stickers in their car, no say there and something like that. A lot of people didn't even know about that in the very neighborhood. So what do you think? Did it improve since that time?
Oh, yes, it has improved drastically. So let me tell you exactly kind of what's going on there. A couple of politicians during the last election used us as a political football. They effectively campaigned on us. So if you take the average, there's about 100,000 people in Roatan. If you take the average person, they're just vaguely paying attention to politics. They watch the news. All they would have heard is what the politicians are saying, effectively. If you go talk to the actual people that live and work in the jurisdiction that interact with us on a daily basis, you'll hear a much different story. We have the support of a number of local elites and entrepreneurs. And in fact, we are the single largest employer of the people of Crawfish Rock, which is the community right next to us. Yes, there's roughly 30% of the population of that community actually lives and works in the jurisdiction right now. The problem is there's a few very loud, very vocal people who, for their own motivations and reasons, are the ones that speak to the media often. Now, as you might imagine, this is how this goes, and I'll stop after this one, but I love punching the media because they're so terrible. So if there's a foreign journalist coming to the jurisdiction, coming to Roatan to come investigate us, they'll go to the jurisdiction, they'll meet with a few people, and then they go to nearby communities, and they'll talk to as many people as they have to until they get to the one person that says bad things about us. There's just one particular member of the local community who also loves talking to the media because it helps her political career. So that's the one. If you go read any of the kind of major mainstream coverage of Próspera, those are the people you're going to hear from, because remember, the journalists always have an agenda, which is often diametrically opposed to what the truth, in fact, is. So this is why we like going directly to the people instead, right? You can follow us on Twitter, you can join our Discord community, you can come visit the jurisdiction, work in the jurisdiction, whatever you want to come learn the truth yourself. Come talk to any of the dozens and dozens of Hondurans that work in the jurisdiction today or that work with us today, and you'll hear a very, very different story from what agenda-driven mainstream journalists are telling you. Awesome. That's it. Thanks so much, guys.